It doesn't come for you in daylight. It waits, patient, unblinking, until the room is still enough to hear your own pulse. Then, in the glow of a tired screen, it arrives. A voice you've never heard, speaking words it should not know, stitched together with the warmth of someone who's been inside your memories. You don't remember clicking play. You don't remember searching for it. But you know, with the same certainty you know the shape of your own grief, that it has been waiting for you. The air feels heavier. Each syllable lands with the weight of a secret you thought you buried. And as your chest tightens, not from fear, but from the ache of being understood, you realize you are not watching a story. You are being read. It begins so softly that your brain almost rejects it. A faint murmur lodged between the static of an old voicemail you'd forgotten to delete and the groan of a floorboard in an otherwise empty room. You tell yourself it's the pipes breathing, the wind leaning against the glass, the common tinnitus that comes with exhaustion. But then, somewhere in that sound, syllables emerge, syllables that shouldn't exist, yet they fall neatly into the shape of your name. The moment feels small, almost dismissible, but it lingers like a smell you can't place. The first time, you laugh it off. The second time, you pause mid-breath. By the third, you stop trying to explain it away. You don't go looking for it, but it starts finding you anyway. It's there in the pauses between songs on an old playlist. In the hush before your phone connects a call. In the soft pressure of thought right before sleep. And then, as if drawn by magnetic coincidence, you stumble across other people's accounts, deep in abandoned message boards, forum posts that haven't been touched in over a decade. 2008, 2009, 2010, ghost usernames on forgotten corners of the internet, all speaking of something they called WISHDOM whispers. Anonymous voices claiming they heard predictions, not broad fortune-teller nonsense, but painfully specific details. A street name. The initials of someone you would meet. The exact hour an accident would happen. Each account is written in the same tense, the same fractured way, as if all of them were trying to describe a dream that wasn't theirs. A pattern begins to surface. Amateur paranormal investigators, the kind who upload shaky night vision footage, capture faint voices on field recordings. Most write it off as environmental noise, but a handful admit they heard something under the noise floor. Not a voice talking at them, but a voice leaning toward them. Waiting. The timestamps in some recordings are the worst part. They match major personal events in the recorder's life, not just broadly, but down to the minute. It's as if the audio had been planted there ahead of time, to be discovered only when the moment it predicted had already passed. The rational explanations crumble one by one. You read the skeptical takes: sleep paralysis, hypnagogic hallucinations, mild temporal lobe seizures. Harmless misfires of the brain, they say. But you can't ignore the precision in the whispers people describe. The cold, surgical accuracy of the details. You can't ignore the fact that people who hear them start finding those words in the world around them, repeated in a news headline, spoken casually by a stranger, or typed in a text from someone who swears they never meant to write it. And then you find the videos. The ones you weren't supposed to see. Someone had stitched together dozens of predictive whispers from across the internet, all cleaned, amplified, and played in slow motion. You can't make out everything, but the cadence is unmistakable. Each whisper feels like it's directed at a single listener. Those videos are gone now. Deleted. Not just taken down, but erased. Accounts suspended, archive links dead within 48 hours. You're left with fragments saved by other people who, judging from their usernames, have vanished from the web entirely. That's when the paranoia starts to bloom. The thought you didn't want to entertain creeps in and refuses to leave. What if you were meant to hear it? What if all of this is not an accident, but an audition? Not for something you signed up for, but for something that was already watching you. Something that doesn't want your attention, only your acknowledgement. And once you've heard it, you've already given it that. Now you find yourself listening to the quiet, waiting, wondering how long it will be before it speaks again, and what it will say this time. Because somewhere, in the deep part of your mind that no explanation can touch, you already know the whisper will come back. It always does. It doesn't look like much at first. No logos, no ads, no layout, Just a blank page with a single directory name glowing against the black. WISHDOM. You're not even sure how you got here. A breadcrumb trail of half-broken links, cached search results, and a whisper in the back of your skull that made you click one more time when you thought you were done. Inside, the folders line up in perfect alphabetical order, each one named for a person you've never met. But you notice something impossible. You recognize them. Not their names, exactly, but the dreams. Because you've had them too. The same rooms. The same shadows. The same voice that wakes you in the middle of the night and leaves nothing behind but instructions. You dig deeper and find echoes of it in the web's own fossils. Wayback Machine captures of a blog that shouldn't exist anymore. WISHDOM stories. Its posts read like confessionals, but there's no self-awareness, no theatrics. Just raw, plain accounts of people who heard something. A sentence, a set of coordinates, a date, and followed it. Some walked away with their lives changed in ways they couldn't explain. Others didn't walk away at all. One post describes taking a different route home because of a whisper and avoiding a highway pileup that killed 17. Another describes a dream about a dark river and waking to find their spouse drowned in one. Each entry is time-stamped. And that's the fracture point, because some are posted before the events they describe took place. The metadata proves it. Someone was recording the future before it happened. You start pulling at the threads. Usernames from the blog surface again on conspiracy subreddits, UFO boards, even obscure forums for lucid dreamers. Years apart, the same accounts tell the same shape of story, but the setting changes. A voice in the woods. A voice in the static of a police scanner. A voice layered under white noise during meditation. The patterns are too precise, too rehearsed, to be coincidence, but too spread out to be an inside joke. It's like these people were reading from the same script, handed down across time zones and decades. Buried in an abandoned university server you find a PDF, stripped of images but intact enough to carry a title, Temporal Auditory Perception, Controlled Induction in Isolated Subjects. There's no author. The references are all redacted. But a line jumps out from the abstract. Subjective timeline manipulation through targeted auditory imprinting. You don't know what that means, but you know it's not benign. The paper disappears from the server 2 days later, as if you were never supposed to see it. You keep circling back to the blog's timestamps. Posts written weeks before the tragedies, hours before the phone calls, minutes before the accidents. If they're real, they shatter the spine of cause and effect. And if they're fabricated, why are they buried so thoroughly? That's when you realize the archive isn't just a record. It's curated. Someone is pruning it, feeding it, making sure only certain pieces survive. Someone, or something, is watching not just the whispers, but the people who hear them. You feel the weight of being observed. Not in the present tense, but in advance. As if your name is already a folder in that directory, waiting for the moment you do something worth collecting. It never comes as a paragraph. Never as a command you can hold up to the light and examine. It's smaller than that, a sliver of language that slips between your thoughts. Turn here. Look up. Knock 3 times. Words so ordinary they barely register, until you realize they've pulled you out of the current and set you down somewhere you were never supposed to be. A different street. A stranger's porch. A place you don't remember walking to, but now you're standing in front of it, heart ticking against your ribs like a clock you didn't wind. The reports always sound the same, no matter who tells them. People who swear they heard something once or twice at first, then more often. The voices don't explain. They don't justify. They just point, and when you follow, the ripples start. In one FOIA fragment from a declassified 1970s cognitive influence project, the term auditory payloads is buried under heavy black bars. The rest is vague, short-form induction patterns, post-event behavior realignment. You can't see the names, the funding sources, the test sites, but you can feel the shape of the thing. Someone, somewhere, knew what these whispers could do, and they were measuring it. Threads buried deep in /r/ unresolved mysteries piece together disappearances that shouldn't connect. Different states, different decades, except that in the months before vanishing, each person posted about hearing the instructions. Sometimes it was playful, like an urban legend. Sometimes it was desperate, like they were trying to warn themselves. But the pattern is there, under all the noise. The voice tells you to be somewhere, and you go. And then you're gone. Psychologists who've looked at the phenomenon from a distance call it pattern recognition addiction. Your brain starts scanning the world for the next fragment, the next nudge. You begin to crave it, even if the last one cost you your job, your friends, your safety. The moment of hearing it becomes a hit you can't turn down. The voice is no longer an interruption. It's the only thing that feels real. One survivor, if that's the right word, tried to explain it in a sworn statement. I didn't want to do it. God knows I didn't. But when it came, it felt like, if I ignored it, something worse would happen. Like the bad thing wasn't the instruction. The bad thing was not following it. They couldn't tell the police what door they knocked on, or who opened it. Just that after that night, the whisper stopped. And that's the part no one knows how to live with. The silence that follows. The feeling that the voice is still out there, waiting. That one day it will find you again, and you'll follow, because not following will feel like stepping off the edge of the world. Some people will tell you they reached the end. That the whispers led them to a final door, a last streetlight, a moment where everything stopped, and then they were free. Others insist they broke away, cut the thread, and slipped out before it pulled them under. But both stories feel wrong, like myths told to make absence easier to explain. The ones who obeyed speak about it carefully, as if certain words might bring it back. They use strange descriptions, waking up to heavier air, shadows that hang too long, mirrors that seem to hesitate before giving your reflection back. They don't say they survived. They say they shifted. The archive holds fragments of their last known movements. A teacher spotted knocking on a boarded-up building 3 towns over. A teenager seen crossing a rural highway at 3:17 a.m., barefoot, following something no one else could hear. After that, nothing. The missing person reports matched too neatly with the old whispered instructions documented years earlier, as if the voices recycle their paths. In the colder corners of the dark web, there's a rumor about graduation. A stage when the whispers no longer suggest, but command. No riddles, no fragments. Just directives. Those who reach this stage don't resist. Not because they can't, but because by then they don't want to. A cache of purged IRC logs speaks of people remembering events no one else recalls. Elections with different outcomes, cities with altered skylines, childhoods and houses that don't exist. They talk about friends whose faces they can't picture anymore, yet swear they once knew better than anyone. Some describe waking up one day unable to dream at all, as if some part of their mind had been sealed off. The most unsettling theory is the quietest one, that those who answered didn't vanish. They simply aren't here anymore. They are elsewhere, in whatever place the whispers belong to. And from there, maybe they can see us. Maybe they're still listening, waiting for the rest of us to take that final step across. It won't come as a stranger's voice. That would be too easy to doubt, too simple to turn away from. When it arrives, it will wear the sound of someone you trust. A parent, a friend, a lover speaking softly in the dark. You will not question it. You will lean in the way you always have, because that tone has never lied to you before. And only when the last word lands will you understand it was never speaking to the person you think you are. It was speaking to the part of you that remembers where it came from. The part it wants back. Witness accounts of the final moments are always incomplete, cut short by the same silence. Some end in disappearance. A man stepping off a curb into the path of nothing, a woman turning a corner in a crowded market and never reappearing. Others don't leave, but what's left behind is not the same. The eyes still move, the mouth still forms words, but the person is gone, replaced by something quieter. Across scattered Twitter threads, people track public fractures in those who once admitted hearing the whispers. One moment coherent, the next speaking in that strange, metered rhythm, the WISHDOM cadence, that seems to drain the meaning from language, replacing it with something only they can hear. In one leaked police interview, an officer mid-sentence shifts tone, his inflection snapping into a precise, unnatural calm. The phrase he speaks matches one documented in early archive files, word for word. When asked later, he insists he doesn't remember saying it at all. The last surviving page of the WISHDOM blog, frozen in an archive.org capture, contains a single embedded audio file, corrupted beyond repair. The caption beneath it is clear: do not listen. No one knows if the warning was meant to protect the reader or the voice itself. And here is the last thought that sits like a weight behind your ribs. If you've heard it even once, you've already been marked. The only question is whether you've obeyed already and simply don't remember.